yelling about it, you know. I was doing fine until we switched positions at the table.
Kenny, we put it in presentation mode
in
so
front of Mike,
you know,
he would find a way to set me.
or I guess if you leave it in that mode but close the notes window, then everybody can see who's talking if they're on Zoom. Greg, before I get started, you have all these people checked off on the COVID tracking attendance list?
Everybody's here.
Okay, and everybody has a ballot, an annual report if they want one?
Yes. Good morning. You all? Okay.
A particular slide where you're going to see
Sure.
I break it down to talk about the financial results.
I can do my buttons. I know how to push buttons just as again. All of good ones. You have good ones to throw out every now and again. What good are you? The answer is probably better than I am, because I'm throwing all my goodness out there.
Are we ready to rock and roll, tech team?
So Brandon, it's doing autofocus in and out again. So that's not something we
I'm
know.
good here.
If I just stand still, it'll maybe stop.
What?
If I stand still, it'll probably stop.
No, you weren't even in the picture.
Am I now?
In fact, it's
You should
really.
be.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, we're going to turn on the microphone here in just a second. We're just trying to get all of our technology working here.
Okay, Pastor Cynthia is now unmuted. Just say check, check or something.
Check, check.
Okay, now she's back muted. The other microphones are just going to stay on.
Check, check.
And the one behind you is for Tanya to use. And that one's also not muted.
Okay, I think we're ready to go, other than the fact that my mask is tangled up in my glasses. I think we're ready to get started. So it is a couple minutes after 11. I'm calling the meeting to order. Before we get too much into this, just a reminder for the people on Zoom. I do have a couple of people who are verifying that we have quorum. So we need to be able to see your names in your profile on Zoom. So if that's not the case, if you please do that. Another reminder, if you're on Zoom, can you please mute your microphone unless you are asking a question.
Everybody's not muted.
Okay, I think we're ready to get started. First up today is Pastor. She is going to give us a quick devotional, and then we'll get on with the business of the meeting.
Somebody's not muted.
Somebody is not muted on Zoom.
What does it sound like? Can we recognize the voice? Okay.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Can you at least turn your sound down?
Okay. It's good to see you who are here, and those of you who are on Zoom or Facebook Live or YouTube. Glad that we are able to do all this to have this meeting. I want to begin with a litany that's printed in your annual report. If you are sitting here and have it, it's on the back page.
Do you have Now's the time.
There we go. O God of all power and love, we give you thanks for your unfailing presence. O God of all power and love, we give thanks
For the hope you provide in times of uncertainty and loss.
O God of all power and love,
We ask
That you send the Holy Spirit to enkindle us with your holy fire.
O God of all power and love, we ask you
to revive us to live as Christ's body in the world.
O God of all power and love, we ask to be
a people who pray, worship,
Learn, break bread,
share life, heal neighbors, bear good news,
seek justice, rest and grow in the Spirit. O God of power and love, we ask you to be with us.
wherever and however we gather. Unite us in common prayer and send us in common mission, that we and the whole creation might be restored and renewed through Jesus Christ our Lord.
So, I just wanted, I don't know how many of you did watch the service this morning, and just kind of wanted to comment a little bit about my message and talking about how we, as God's people, are called. The Holy Spirit took hold of Jesus at his baptism and was driven out into the wilderness, and then his first act in the synagogue is to heal this man of an unclean demon, and the power of beginning that ministry. And when we gather together, even though we're in separate places, that power still is there. In the message from Bishop Elizabeth Eaton, she talks about this year, 2020, that we just ended, and how COVID-19 has changed everything about how we do everything, including worship and our life as a congregation. In such a time as this, she says, our baptism in Christ makes a difference and makes us different. Like Christians before us, who recall that God is faithful to God and promises and God's people. We see that God enables us to connect with one another even when we are separated. Shifts in the world invite us to be innovative in how we do God's work and reach out to all ages in making disciples. We see that God is at work not only in our buildings, but beyond them as well. We have found new ways to serve our neighbors and to reach those in need. Earlier this week, I was talking with some colleagues that do interim ministry, and one of the things that happened here at Salem during my interim time is we moved out of our buildings. I know that was really painful for a number of you, but it's also very positive that we have an opportunity to think outside the box and dream big dreams, have new visions, because God is active. I want to share the passage that Bishop Eaton lifts up from Ephesians. The gifts he gave were that some would be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors and teachers, to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for the building up of the body of Christ, until all of us come to the unity of faith and knowledge of the Son of God, to mature to the measure of full stature of Christ. We must no longer be children tossed to and fro, blown about by every wind of doctrine, by people's trickery, by their craftiness and deceitful scheming, but speak the truth in love. We must grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and knitted together by every ligament with which is equipped, as each part is working properly and promotes the body growth in the building up itself in love. We are the body of Christ. We are siblings together, united in our baptism, to lift that up. Today I also have some sad news to share with you. We received a message from Dave and Sharon Bowen, and their granddaughter, Kennedy, passed away early this morning. So as I close this section with prayer, I want us to remember them. Let us pray. Lord, let the words of the Apostle Paul dwell in us deeply. May we embrace the reconciling power of oneness with Christ. May this oneness guide our congregation as we live into new realities of these times. As we meet new partners in ministry, may we take time to get to know them with patience, humility, and love. Help us to see how sharing our gifts will make your work easier and more fulfilling, while bringing all of us closer to Christ. Oh God, we especially lift up baby Kennedy's family, especially Dave and Sharon, as they grieve the loss of this child. Comfort them, embrace them with your love, as we too reach out to them. May the blessings you give each day strengthen us to a living, daring, and confidence in your grace. Amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor Cynthia. So I know that the annual meeting is kind of dry and boring, so I dressed in how you really would, what you'd really like to be watching today. And you can all just puzzle as to why I'm wearing an old, a non-active current Chiefs player shirt, but that'll just be my little mystery. And if we really get bored, I'll start throwing footballs. So first of all, just a reminder to the people on Zoom, if your name is not on your profile, please make sure that it shows so we can verify quorum here in a minute. I'm going to give some directions about voting. The people who are here in person notice that we did not have you sign for your ballot this time. What we're doing is the pink envelope you receive with your ballot, that will be where we verify voters. So in that vein, every ballot will need to be submitted in an envelope. On the envelope, please print and sign your name. This is going to be how we verify that all the ballots received are appropriate ballots. I've heard that this morning there was some trouble downloading the ballot that's on the website. Please be patient. I'll get that remedied with Sherry tomorrow morning. But there is a ballot to download. There's one here for the people who are here in person. There will be ballots available in the church office. So if you have any trouble voting, let us know. One other item about the ballot, I realized there was an error in it yesterday, so had to create a new ballot. If you downloaded your ballot prior to today, you might need to double check that you have the correct ballot. The correct ballot is on the council members. It should include Greg Butel and Jamie Dougherty. If it doesn't, you have the original ballot. If you submit the original ballot, we will still accept it, but just beware of that.
When the download from the website works, it was from the Salem newsletter that it did not work.
Oh, yes. Sorry, the website download works for the ballot. It's the ballot from the newsletter that is not working. On the ballots, people who are here and want to vote today can submit their ballots today, but all ballots need to be received in the church office no later than 5 p.m. Monday, February 8th. That's a week from tomorrow. Council meets on the 8th, and the first business will be counting the ballots. The ballots can be dropped off in person or mailed, and that's fine. It says on the ballot that if there's any items that you do not indicate a decision, those will be counted as abstentions. Are there any questions about voting? Yep. So a reminder about Zoom, if you and someone else from your household are watching together, make sure both of your names are on Zoom. On that same vein, if you and someone in your household are both voting and you choose to mail in your ballot, our preference is that you would put it in separate envelopes, or at least make sure both of your names are on the outside, so that we can tell who the ballots are from. Okay, I'm going to call for quorum here in a second. There's a couple things I want to note. The list of voting members was available for review beginning January 13th. We were contacted by one person with a discrepancy, and their issue was resolved. COVID and staff turnover have made compiling this list more difficult this year, particularly for records of those who have communed. We've had to rely in part on the congregation notifying us of any discrepancies. Today's list of eligible members is being used to establish quorum and will be considered the list of voting members for all of 2021, with the exception of the addition of any new members and of any of those who are not eligible to vote but who satisfy the requirements later. There are 150 eligible members to vote. Quorum is 20%, which is 30. Greg, can you please verify there are 30 or more voting members participating in today's meeting?
Yes.
We have quorum. Thank you. Can I borrow somebody's annual meeting or agenda? I'm sorry, of all the things I printed out today, I did not print out the minutes from last year's meeting for us to review. So the annual meeting, the minutes from the annual congregational meeting of Salem Lutheran Church, Sunday, January 26, 2020. Quorum was a minimum of 35. There were 60 plus attending at the meeting. President Greg Butel called the meeting to order at 11:42. Interim Pastor Cynthia Schnath opened with a prayer and sharing a part of the message from the ELCA presiding Bishop Elizabeth Eaton as found in the annual report. Approval of the congregational meeting minutes from January 13th. We reviewed 2019. Lynn Ross motioned to approve, Jen Butel seconded, a voice vote was taken, and the motion passed. Approval of the annual meeting, of the meeting minutes, the first item was approval of the special congregational meeting minutes from January 13th. Next was approval of the annual meeting minutes from January 27th, 2019. We reviewed the minutes. Lynn Ross motioned to approve, Scott Hahn seconded, a voice vote was taken, and the motion passed. Thanks and recognition to Heather Lewis, Emily Nelson-Dixon, Sherry Van Bale, Mickey Lawrence were thanked for stepping up and filling gaps during the transition after Pastor Dave's departure in August, while we had pulpit supply, and we transitioned to Pastor Cynthia as the interim. Also thank the many involved with the work around the properties after the sale of the buildings earlier in 2019. Review of 2019 financials. Lynn Ross presented the 2019 financials. Jen Butel motion to approve. Vance Thomas seconded. Voice vote was taken. Motion passed. Election of council positions. Ballots were distributed. Ray Birchfield for a 3-year term. Vance Thomas for a 3-year term. And Tanya Trana for a second 3-year term. 63 ballots were received. Voted for all 3 ballots received for a mixed vote of candidates. Synod Assembly, Donna and Ray Birchfield have volunteered to be the representatives at the June 4th through 6th, 2020 dates for the Synod Assembly in St. Louis. Anyone interested in being an alternate should talk with Pastor Cynthia or Lynn Ross. We had a video on ministry highlights. There was a joint reading of the interim covenant with Pastor Cynthia and the congregation. Annual budget for 2020 was presented with a 4-year partial year budget. Council and Finance agreed to present a 4-year budget taking into consideration the Stewardship Campaign and results and discernment discussions, feedback, and return on April 26th with a special congregational meeting to review the remaining budget. Council to review available options for closing the budget gap. Questions and answers around the Endowment Fund and Endowment Fund dividend earnings were raised. Only the congregation can vote to use the funds from the Endowment Fund. The Endowment Fund is designed to not be used for operational expenses. To be conservative, monies from the Endowment Fund dividend earnings were not used in creating the 4-month budget. This is primarily due to the endowment team roles and responsibilities not yet finalized. Jim Roy motion to approve the 4-month budget as presented. Lynn Ross seconded. A voice vote was taken. Motion passed. Next steps. Jim Roy shared the stewardship plan for 2020. The stewardship campaign is from January 26, 2020 through February 23, 2020. What does Salem mean to us is the theme for the year. The people of Salem are the answer. What is your Salem? What is your heart? Discernment discussions will be held Sundays through February and March. Open forum discussion, conversation starters, but no formal presentation planned. Notes gathered each week will be shared with council and direct feedback for planning and work for the remaining budget. Saturday, February 29th is a Leap into Salem Future event, which is working and goal setting with the council, staff, ministry teams, and the congregation. Special congregation meeting set for April 26, 2020 at 11:45 to finalize the remainder of the year. New business, question on the bylaws and processes. Process includes council approval, then synod approval. Upon return from the synod, then the congregation can vote on the bylaws. Council has the topic of bylaw proposed changes on the business agenda. No other new business was presented. A motion to adjourn by Jen Butel, Vance Thomas, and Scott Hahn seconded. Motion passed. The meeting adjourned at 12:26 with the Lord's Prayer. On the ballot is the opportunity to vote on every votable item is on the ballot. So this item is on the ballot to approve the meeting minutes. Are there any questions or corrections to the minutes? Being done, you can vote on your ballot. So next up is thanks and recognition. And honestly, I think I could have made one of those lists that you drop and it's like 10 feet long. I'm going to start by thanking this entire congregation. This has been a challenging year in a whole bunch of ways. The pandemic is probably number one. Moving out of one space that we had been in for quite literally 100 years to a new space was really challenging, and this congregation absolutely stepped up and did what was needed. So thank you very much to the entire congregation. Also, I want to really thank our staff. Again, it's been a tough year. Our staff has worked from home. They've worked in the office social distancing. They've worn masks. There has been quite a bit of turnover in the office admin position, and so everybody has stepped in to do their absolute best for this congregation. Our staff organized going to online worship very quickly, back to in-person, getting us moved out of buildings, and then setting back up here. Our staff is absolutely top-notch. I do want to especially mention Heather Lewis, who honestly, the seamless transition from worshiping in person to worship online is just amazing. She worked out a number of special services at the end of August. We had First Communion, Confirmation, and then a beautiful outdoor worship to celebrate our last Sunday in Old Town Lenexa. And I just will personally say I'm incredibly impressed with some of the special things that we've had for online worship, and do really want to call out the choir cantata on the 13th. I have watched it numerous times. I will openly admit I cried at first because I just felt so lonesome for everyone. I also want to thank our musicians and singers. I don't think any of them set out to be YouTube stars, but now they are, which is something kind of to think about if you are used to just performing for 80 of your closest friends to being broadcast. I know Pastor Cynthia, when she first got here, had a little anxiety about having her sermon taped every week and on the website, and now look at how relaxed she is in front of the camera, what a great job she does with her sermons. I mean, a whole bunch of just growth and kudos to everybody in that area. I want to call out the Pantry Pack team, who, first of all, figured out how to continue offering that ministry socially distanced, with masks, with all of those other things, and then moved it across the street. And the moving across the street is actually not as easy as just picking up your boxes and moving. Harvesters had to okay the site. We had to move the commercial refrigerator. Like, it was kind of a big deal. And so that is really gigantic. And all the while, The need for this ministry has grown. The Pantry Pack team has stepped up, providing additional items like meat. I know at Christmas they offered tamale kits, so this team really aces to them too. I want to call out the fellowship team. First of all, at the end of August, they managed to pull together a reception of sorts for First Communion, Confirmands, and then on our last day in Old Town Lenexa. And then, for Christmas, they were the ones who organized the little gift bags and made sure they were delivered to people who had not attended in person. So again, you know, hats off to the fellowship team. Probably the biggest project of the year was getting us moved out of buildings we've been in for 100 years. If any of you have ever moved house after living in there, even as short of a period of time as 5 years, you know how much stuff you accumulate. So let's just imagine 100 years of accumulation. There were so many people involved in getting us out of those buildings. There were multiple dates where people came, they sorted, packed, purged, moved. Like it was a huge deal, and I started to kind of list the names of people who I knew had been there, but honestly the list is long and I would not have got everyone, so there was a lot of people involved in that. Also with that were people who arranged for the garage sale, multiple garage sales, multiple weekends. We had people who negotiated with Redeemer on the tables and chairs and other items that they purchased. Like, there was a lot of people involved in getting us out of there, and a huge project, and just thank you to all of those people. We've been able to continue providing or supporting the gathering table throughout the pandemic. The gathering table changed its model for how it was working. I'll mention Laurel's name, but I know a lot of other people were involved. Laurel reached out, she found out what they needed. We've been able to continue that ministry. I do want to call out the transition team that was in place at the beginning of the year. They finished up their work and handed off to the call committee. First of all, thank you to the call committee for saying yes to that somewhat daunting task of working through the call process. They've put in a lot of time and done an excellent job, so thank you to both of those groups. I do want to say thank you to Joyce Benedict, who's been serving as treasurer. This is not a small job. It is a huge time commitment. This year she added on to that. She pursued and secured for us a payroll protection loan. So she probably deserves some kind of medal for battling the red tape on that one. And last on my list is Kathy Pastrowski. I know she doesn't like to be singled out, so I left her till last. She's stepping down from the position of financial secretary, so she's been the one keeping track of everyone's giving records, producing reports every month, answering questions. Again, not a 2-minute-a-week job. It takes a lot of time to get everyone's things entered and correctly. We've got online giving, we've got simply giving, we've got a number of different ways, and she has managed that beautifully. I think it's been 13 years, is that correct, Kathy? So, round of applause for Kathy on that. And I do want to mention another thank you to Joyce Van Lanningham, who has agreed to step in and take over.
Janice.
I'm sorry, Janice. I have her name correct here. Janice Van Lanningham, who has agreed to step in as financial secretary. So again, thank you to the entire congregation. Your support is very much appreciated. Next up is review of the 2020 financials. I'm going to let Joyce come up and do that. You okay sharing the microphone with me?
Yes. I just have to get this old body to move.
First up you have is a balance sheet that was presented last week at the town hall meeting, and the great news is we finished the year in the black. By that I mean our general fund checking account is positive, which it has not been for several years, and that was facilitated by part of the budget process last year was the allocation of $40,000 from the sale proceeds, so that allowed us to have that general fund checking account in the black. And if you look at the screen, there's some comparison to where our balance sheet was at the end of the year before, and you see items that are up and down. Our endowment fund checking is up because we receive, we receive quarterly interest payments from the endowment fund. Building fund is down because we've used that money for some of the projects around Koinonia Hall. And there's a new item on there, which is the Meredith ministry checking. And during 2020, we received a $200,000 bequest from the Shirley Meredith estate. And that's to be used solely for ministry programs around Salem. We looked at what we might use in 2020 and 2021, and the rest was invested, which you'll see at the bottom. We have $175,000 that we've invested in the ELCA. It is separate from the other endowment fund because we wanted the ability to use that money as needed for ministry without requiring a congregational vote. So we set up a separate fund. I don't think pantry pack checking will fund the balance into 2021. I wasn't looking at Lynn's note, I was kind of speaking off the cuff. I think there's, are there any questions, anybody on Zoom or here that have any questions on the balance sheet? Let's move to the next slide. And this is a summarized version of our income statement. We received $269,000 in contributions to our general mission fund. Endowment proceeds were $26,000. The other pass-through shows $232,000. Well, the $200,000 from the Meredith estate is included in that. So there was $32,000 that was to other funds like Women's Bible Study or paying for flowers, teen fund that would include that other $32,000. And our income-less expenses was $144,000. So this is a highly summarized. Our lease rent was way down. Of course, that's because of moving out of the buildings and terminating the lease. So I think that's, unless there are questions, that's all. Yes, Ryan.
On the income side of things, is the PPP loan information in here as income or anything, or is it just excluded?
No, the PPP, Ryan asked the question if the proceeds of the payroll protection loan was included in income. It is not. It is shown as a liability on our balance sheet. It should be entirely forgiven, at which time it will be then income. As of yet, our loan is through our bank, BMO, and everything is online, and they've not given me the approval to file the process, but we used the funds, which was $48,000. We used it entirely for payroll and 1 month's rent, so it should be entirely forgiven, but no. That income is not included. It is still shown as an outstanding liability until it gets forgiven.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, this is something also on your ballot to approve the acceptance of the 2020 financials.
Thank you, Joyce. Vance, if you could go 2 slides. The next item is the presentation of council members. So during the year, we had 2 vacancies. Tracy Anderson and Scott Hahn resigned. In the fall, Greg Beachell and Jamie Dougherty agreed to join council to fulfill their terms. so they need to be elected at this time. So they are each on the ballot for the final year of 3-year terms. The other individual is Dave Bowen, who has agreed to a 3-year term. And we actually have 3 vacancies this year. David Bowen is the only one on the agenda. We can accept additional nominations today for the open positions. We would need the nominee to be available to accept in order to include for today. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Ryan Cohen to consider for one of the vacancies.
Ryan, are you willing to be on the ballot?
I would need to talk with my wife.
Okay. Ryan is not quite yet on the ballot, but
Can we give thanks to Jim, Danielle, and Adam, please?
the 3 people going off are Jim Rehor, Danielle Etzeni,
Adam.
and Adam Boxberger. I can't believe my mind worked on that one. Tremendous thanks to them. It has been an interesting year on council, to say the least, and I just want to say that it has been an awesome group of people to work with, passionate about this congregation and the ministries, and I cannot say enough good things about all of them, or even, including Scott Hahn and Tracy Anderson. You know, all of them, their service is greatly appreciated. Our Constitution specifies that the council should have at least 6 members, but not more than 9. With Greg, Jamie, and Dave, we will have 7, which is allowable. The Constitution also allows for the council to elect additional members to fill vacancies, so we will continue recruiting. And so if you are interested after this, or you would like to know more about being on council, please contact Tandy Toronto or myself. And like I said, we will continue to recruit for those positions. So these are on your ballot to vote. Next up is voting members to Senate Assembly. The Senate Assembly this year will be June 4th and 5th. It is going to be entirely virtual. Larry and Peg Beerbaum volunteered, so they are our representatives to the Senate Assembly. We do also have the opportunity to send a youth member. So if there is a youth who would like to be part of that, all they need to do is let Tanya know. And we quite often have alternates in case an event comes up and Larry and Peggy were not able to attend. If we get closer to that date and Larry and Peggy are not able to attend, we will be beating the bushes for alternates. Or if right now you already know that you would be willing to be an alternate, again, Joyce is willing to be an alternate, we would need a male. A man to be the other alternate. Next slide. And to talk about the Endowment Fund and the endowment bylaws is Jim Nicholson.
Can you hear, or Lynn, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. The Endowment Fund did pretty well during 2019. Well, 19, okay, 2020, the market did bounce back and we did reasonably well. You can see from the adjusted slide, the reason it came out late is this endowment fund is made up of a lot of other funds that don't price until later in January. So it was available about the end of the month. But the endowment fund net increase in market value was $68,000. On top of that, since we made the initial investment in 2019, we received $32,000 in dividends. We get a monthly or a quarterly check that's 4% of the average balance over the past 5 years. So we've been very pleased with the results. The endowment fund is an ELCA component that invests in church appropriate activities, and there's more information later if people want that. We'll move to the next slide. original endowment team was made up of Kelly Brittany, Stephanie Wichter, Jim Nicholson, Pastor Jen Thomas, and Master Dave Witter. We worked on selecting the investment opportunities and then the bylaws. Part of the process is we have an ongoing committee composed of 3 members of an endowment team. They'll have staggered terms, and the intent is that they will recommend how to use the proceeds from the distributions. 2020, most of that went to specific components like the pastoral's discretionary fund and ministry opportunities, and we put, I think, 5,000 reinvested back into the endowment. The intent with the whole setting up of the endowment was to ensure the principal left from the sale of the church property would stay available for Salem for a significant capital project in the future, rather than being used for operational expenses. So any distribution of the principal from the endowment fund requires congregational approval rather than just council approval. And the bylaws also state that we will review the policy every 2 years. I move to accept the endowment fund bylaws at this point.
Second.
Press on. Yeah, and not to offend Jen, I'm a little concerned that we don't have age diversity in the members. I think that it's very important at this point in time, as some of us who are a little older are kind of filtering out, that we have a younger member on there, because they're going to be the future of Salem as we move forward, and they need to be part of this process, in my feeling.
That's a valid concern. I was trying to ensure we had at least both male and female representation. And actually, I think we'll have, we will have an opening in the future as Joan and I will be moving to Florida later this year. So we'll have an opportunity then to change the composition of the team slightly.
It was moved and seconded by Kathy Helwig to accept the proposed bylaws. We have one question. Are there any other questions or discussion? Okay, voting to approve the proposed bylaws is on the ballot. Next was, if you go to the next slide, please, Vance. The next item on the agenda is the presentation of the endowment committee members. It's been proposed for Jen Butel, Jim Nicholson, and Jim Rehor to be the committee members. The plan is that that committee will get together and decide who has the 1-year term, who has the 2-year term, and who has the 3-year term. I'm guessing from what Jim Nicholson just said that he will be the 1-year term. You can nod your head and let me know if that's the case.
We'll decide as a group. It doesn't matter to me. I'll let Jim and Jen decide how they want to work it.
Fair enough. So this is again on your ballot, if you'd like to include that in your voting. Next is Cindy Harmison, who's going to give us an update from the call committee.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Your call committee is comprised of myself, Peggy Beerbaum, Chris Berge, Jared Held, Jim Roy, Zach Wallenberg, and Steve Weiss. We were convened last August to start the call process for Salem, and we've been working working with Bishop India and Reverend Susan Langhauser. Pastor Langhauser is what is referred to as our call process administrator, and she helps guide us through the process. The committee prepared a ministry site profile, I'll refer to that as the NSP, and that's a form that the ELC uses during the call process. It allows a church to describe what their ministry is about, their vision for mission, and it has a number of different questions that they ask that the committee needed to fill out and send out, because it's what is used by the pastors that are looking for a call when they're trying to decide if they would like to apply as a candidate for the position. We used, as a committee, we used both our personal knowledge as well as all the information that was gathered from the congregational surveys and the discernment meetings that were sent out last February. We completed the MSP in November and submitted it to Church Council, and they approved it. And it was then submitted to the ELCA and made available for rostered ministers that might be interested. We received multiple candidates and conducted interviews in December with the second interview in early January. A little over a week ago, I am pleased to report that the committee unanimously and enthusiastically submitted a recommendation and a report to council to call a candidate. The council accepted our recommendation. Unfortunately, I can't share the name of the candidate today because this occurred so recently that the candidate has not yet been able to share this with their council and congregation, and our council has also not had an opportunity to complete a compensation package for discussion with the candidate. But I thought it would be helpful if we could share the next steps. The congregation will have an opportunity to do a meet and greet with the candidate on the weekend of February 20th and 21st. The call committee is currently working on putting together a schedule that we can send out to everyone. And in the next 2 weeks, we will send out that information as well as information on the candidate, including their name and some background about them. There will then be a special call congregation meeting on Sunday, February 28th to consider approving the call and approving a compensation package, or they can also authorize council to approve the package. And then if the call is approved by the congregation, we would expect a new pastor would likely start in April, sometime after Easter. And that is all I have to share with anyone from the committee would like to speak.
We do have one question here in the chapel. Joyce?
Actually, I have 2 questions for Cindy. If she could share if the candidate is male or female, and if they are local or out of town.
She asked if we can share if it's male or female, or they're local or out of town. I'm going to answer for Cindy and say no. All that information will be coming. Terry Love had a question.
Same question.
Terry Love had the same question. Are there any questions from Zoom?
I'm just so impressed that the whole committee's gotten this far.
Kathy Hellwood is excited and impressed, as am I. So thank you very much to the call committee. Just to reiterate, more information is coming. There will be something official, probably no later than February 11th, because we'll need to make the announcement about the special congregational meeting. I will preface it and say I don't think voting will be quite like it is today, and that we won't have a week for ballots to get turned in. We'll probably have a window of time, a couple of hours maybe. A drive-by event has been talked about to come and submit ballots. So it'll all have to be that day. It'll be the same envelope, sign your name, all that kind of stuff, rather than having a sign-in sheet that we're passing around. So much more to come on that. Very exciting, very, very exciting. I will also say I hope that this news makes a council position more attractive. Advance. Let's go on to the next item. Next up is the 2021 budget. I have Candy down here to do this with me, so I'm going to let her get up here. We have some assumptions going into the 2021 budget. We have assumed an offering income of $280,000. This is a little bit more than we received this year, but based on our positive momentum. Even as we were working on this, expected we would be calling a pastor within the 2021 year. All of this we felt like was going to make achieving that offering goal realistic. In line with the endowment bylaws that we just reviewed, we do have some of the proceeds allocated toward specific items in the budget. We have also included reinvesting about 10,000 of that. We're going to leave the tithe at 8% for 2021, which is what it was in 2020. Our budget does include a 3% increase for staff. I just want to put out there that this is long overdue, and I hope that next year we're in a position to do the same. In putting the budget together, we also assumed that we would have reduced activity levels for at least the first part of 2021. So a few ministries have less allocated than they did last year, and this is because we don't anticipate that, for instance, there will be the same street team events. We don't think we'll be doing children's or youth Sunday school here in the first part of the year. We did leave the VBS budget, but I think that still remains to be seen. We do have available cash on hand, which was included in the balance sheet from the general fund. We have money in the endowment checking that's allocated to the budget. We have money in building fund, so when you look at the budget, you'll see an amount for the building fund that is 100% covered by cash on hand. We have a scholarship we give every year. There is money in the Memorial Scholarship Fund to fund it for this year. And we still have $6,000 available from the proceeds of the sale. All of these items were included in our budget. Anything else you want to add?
No.
You go on to the next slide. This is the detail that goes with it. This does match what's in the annual report. Shows total income of $295,850, total expenses of $334. Then you figure in the cash on hand and what we're allocating from the endowment, and we're about $1,000 short of having a balanced budget. I think probably that $1,000 will be made up in the early part of the year. Are there any questions on the budget? Okay. I will leave it at that and say, well, that's on your ballot. Nancy, you want to skip 2 slides? Last is, Tammy's going to talk a little bit about the Stewardship Campaign and then adjourning.
Thank you, Lynn. Before I get started talking about the Stewardship Campaign, those of you at home on Zoom and here in the audience today, please give a round of applause for Lynn. She has worked did double duty with her finance team representation and as council president this year, and she is just outstanding. So thank you so much. Spend a couple moments talking about the Stewardship Campaign. Council took this task on this year for 2021, and I am heading up the charge there with putting together some materials. And so the month of February, we will be putting together and informing everyone of the Stewardship Campaign. This year's title is Living a Generous Life. And we will be waiting to kick off all the stewardship till after voting is complete. So the Stewardship Campaign will kick off on February 15th, which will be a week after voting is complete. But there will be information that will be sent out, kind of bringing you around to the topic a little bit, and the official information will come out the 15th. Commitment Sunday will be February 28th. And so that kind of corresponds nicely to the call process, next steps, and bringing our commitments to our Lord in one service. So please be on the lookout for mailed materials and emailed materials, staff tracks, information, images on Instagram. We'll have pieces to share in all those places.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Great, until on the second.
All right, I'll call this meeting as adjourned, and we will close with the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone on Zoom. Any last questions?